What's the best case for when people will feel that things are better, that there'll be a recovery that's kicking in across the country?
You know, it's a little hard to say when people will feel what. We have an official forecast and we update it a couple times a year. At the beginning of this year, it looked like we were going to get pretty robust growth, and the first 3 months, most of the data was coming in better than expected. Then you encounter some difficult conditions, financial crisis in Europe, and that clearly slowed things down a bit. I don't think we're going to be facing anything like double-dip recession. Most private forecasters are not anticipating that. But we got to get the growth rate up higher. I think for most people, they're going to be looking at overall growth in the economy as well as how many jobs are getting added. Those are kind of the twin measures that most people are going to look at.
And we could have 10% unemployment before we're done.
Yeah, look, the unemployment rate includes only people who are actively looking for work. So as the president and as the economists have often said, there is a hidden unemployment problem from people who've been moved from full-time to part-time involuntarily. People discouraged workers dropped out of the labor force. So the real labor market problems of the recession that began in 2007 is even bigger than just what the unemployment rate says. That said, if we start, what we want to see is continuation and speeding up of the trend that we have seen the last 8 months, where we've had 8 straight months of private sector job growth after 20 plus months of loss. We need to do more. The private sector job growth needs to be greater, but that's where we're going to be looking. I think the unemployment rate can fluctuate around even when the economy turns up, because people out of the labor force can come back in.
Now, the growth in the number of jobs, do we expect a smooth curve, or will that hop around?
Usually these things hop around, especially on a monthly basis, but the trend we want to continue and upgrade the trend of the last 8 months. Private sector starting to grow, economy overall starting to grow. That's where we've got to be. And you've seen the president for almost a year saying, if there are targeted policies like the small business policy, like the investment incentives or the infrastructure, which could get some targeted job creation and get the growth rate up, we ought to do those things. And I hope we can do that on some bipartisan basis. It seems like there's widespread consensus in the business community of labor, the administration, and should be in Congress, that we want the economy to grow, and let's find that common ground and do it.
So at this point, do you and your colleagues feel optimistic, or do you still feel worried?
Look, I think we feel that our best expectation is what's in the forecast, that in the medium term, we are growing, we're adding jobs, but we need to do more. It needs to be faster than that, and we're every day down there trying to figure out, how do we get the job growth faster than it has been? How do we get the private sector stood up? I think it is important to note that amidst there have been people criticizing the president, saying he's a socialist, he doesn't believe in the private market. That's totally bogus. From the beginning and continuing up to the present, the president has always said that the private sector is going to be the only sustainable source of job creation and growth in this country, and that's what we need to have.
Now, you and your colleagues have been pretty candid about the economic outlook. You haven't sugarcoated anything when you've been going out in interviews like this. How did you decide that, and do you worry about how that plays?
I didn't attempt to make any strategic judgment on that. The Council of Economic Advisors' job is to just deal in fact, deal in policy, and it's not an especially partisan office. I wasn't trying to be bleak or send anybody a signal, and I don't think that all the signals are bleak by any means. I think we were in a bleak spot of way down in a hole and came very close to experiencing another depression, which we did not experience, and now we're working our way out of it. We have an official forecast. That forecast is of moderate growth in the short run, and we got to do everything we can to get that up and try to get the unemployment rate down, because obviously it starts from a very elevated level.